All right. One of the exercises in chapter 3 is exercise number 4, which want us to calculate the employee payroll. So we created a project called Payroll GUI. And in the first part, I'm just going to do the design quickly, and then I'll do the programming afterwards. So I put a label. I changed the text for the form. I called it employee payroll. And then I put a label called employee payroll. And then we change the text value to employee payroll, but we'll change also the font, make it a little bit bigger, so it looks like a title. So now make it bold, and then maybe 16, and hit OK. So now it looks like bigger. Now in the program, they ask us to enter a few things. One of them is the employee name. Then the other one is employee social security number, and hourly pay, hourly rate, and number of hours worked. So I'm going to add the labels quickly. We'll add one label and copy and paste the other ones. Okay, so this is the text of this should say name. All right, I'll change the font. Make it 12, and then let's just make it bold. Hit OK. So that's the name. Now we need to copy and paste this. Control copy, Control V for the social security number, Control V for the hourly rate, Control V for the hourly number of hours. Then we have to calculate a few things. According to the exercise, we have to calculate the gross pay, the net federal tax, state tax, and net pay. So again, I'm going to Control V for another 4 labels, and then just change the values. Okay. So now this should say social security number. We need to change the text to social security number. I'm just going to, for short, SSN. This one will say hourly rate. This one will say number of hours, hours worked. Okay. And this one should say gross pay. This one would say federal tax. This one say state tax. Finally, this is net pay. All this just design. There's nothing programming yet. Now we need, the program asks us, the exercise asks us to enter these 4 values above. So we have to provide a mechanism for the user to enter those values. And the only mechanism that you know right now is text box. So I'm going to include a text box, 4 text boxes. Here is one. And then you just copy and paste this. Because it's a name, usually the name is long, so you can make it bigger. Okay, so Control copy, Control V for the social security number, Control V for the number of hours, and then Control V for, well, the number of hour and hourly rate. Okay, so now here, this one is the name. This is social security number is 9 digits, so I'll make it smaller. This one is hourly rate, should not be too big. Make it smaller, and then the number of hours work also smaller. Okay. Then we have to give those names. Why? We have to give them names so we can access them in the program. So I have to go to the property, and if you make this alphabetized, one of the properties called name. So I give this one as txt name, because this is the name of the employee. This one, txt social security number. And then this one, txt rate, and then this one txt hours. Why did I do this? So I can access them in my program. I can get their value in my program. All right, so that we're done with the text boxes. Next, we need to provide output for the user to display the results. So I have 4 outputs here: net gross pay, federal tax, state tax, and net pay. Last time I showed you how to do it in labels. You can make it also in a text box if you want, and disable the text box. I'm going to do it in this exercise as a text box and disable the text box. So all you need to do, you type in, find in a text box. Here's the text box. Now I disable this text box. That means that they cannot enter values in it. They can only view values. How do you disable it? You go in here. There's an option called enable false. If I say make that enable true, it's true right now. If I make it false, means when I run it, let me show you the program. When I run this, do you see that? It's grayed out. You cannot change it. So instead of using labels, you can also use text box and disable the text box if you want to. Either way, it's okay. In the previous recording, I showed you how to do it as a label, but you can do it also as a text box in this video. All right? But we have to give it a name. I can copy this, Control copy, Control V for the federal tax, Control V for the state tax, and then Control V for the net pay. Okay? Now I go and change the names. The first one should say TXT what? Gross. This one should say TXT federal. And this one state, TXT state. And then the last one, TXT net pay, TXT net. All right? Now all of this we've done before, but I'm doing it again so it refreshes your memory. So finally we want to add a button, and this button does the calculation. So we'll have to find a button. Here's a button, add it and drop it into my form. And then this one should say net pay. And oh, that's the name. I can't change the name. I changed the name. Okay, but here we're going to change that to the text we want to change. Net pay. And change the font a little bit so it looks bigger. All right. And then make the button bigger. Okay, so that is the design. Now we need to do the calculation. According to the handout, they say the gross pay is equal to what? The net pay, the hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours. The federal tax is 15% of the gross pay. The state tax is 5% of the gross pay, and the net pay, it is equal to gross pay minus federal tax minus state tax. All right. So how do we do the calculation? When you're doing a program the first time, you need to find out the things that you need for your calculation. Which are the things that I need for my calculations? The hourly rate and our number of hours. So I have to define variables that contains these values. So I double click on the button net pay, and here is where I can enter my coding. First, I have to define the values. I have 2 values, hourly rate and then number of hours. Can you work 5.5 hours or not? So the number of hours has to be double. Can you get paid 3 dirham and 50 fils, for example? Can you? Yes. So it has to be double. Whenever you're dealing with hours, currency, and things like that, you need to use double. So I have to define two variables. One of them, both are double. One of them is what? Hours, And the other one is what? Rate. All right? Now to do the calculations, how many things that I need to calculate? If you go back to the design, how many things that I have to calculate? What are they? Gross pay, federal tax, state tax, and net pay. So for each one of those, I need to define a variable. You don't have to, but this is the practice that you need for now. You need to define a variable. So you go back to the code, you double click on this, and I need to define those variables. So what are the variables? Double, gross pay, comma, what else? Fed tax, I'm just going to make it short, Fed tax, and what else? State tax, and net pay. Is this difficult? Is there something that we haven't done before? So when you're telling me I don't know how to start, it doesn't make sense because we've done it and then you know how to do it. It's not something that you have not done it before, okay? You just need to do it. You need to try it. Get your head into it and do it. Otherwise, if you just give up, you're not going to do it. You will never do it, okay? All right, next is to do what? Next is to do the calculation. Do we know what the calculations are? Okay, what is the first thing we need to calculate? Gross pay. Okay, because everything else depends on the gross pay. So I have to calculate the gross pay first. So what is the gross pay equal to? Yeah. Type. So before I can do that, I need to get what the user enter, which is what? The hours and the rate. So I cannot continue my equation until I take the values from what the user entered. And how do I get the value from what the user entered? We need to take them and convert them. Right? So I have hours equal to what? Hours equal convert what? To double. Right? Why to double? Because I define this as double. So the value that you need to convert has to be converted into double before you store it into the variable. So convert to double. What value we need to convert? TXT. No, not the hourly rate. TXT what? TXT hours, right? Dot text. Why do we use dot text? Because the TXT hours by itself is just the control, the whole text box, which has properties and things you can do with it. But if I want to take the value, I have to use the dot text. Is that clear? This is a property that gives you back the value. It gives it back to you as a string. So you need to convert it into a number. And the way to convert it into a number, we use this thing here. Convert dot to whatever value we wanted to convert it to. Then we do the same thing for what? Rate. So we say rate equal, again, convert dot to double. And then we have to give it the text box. Which text box here? Rate. TXT rate dot text. All right. Now we know we have all the things that we need to do our calculations, right? Because gross pay depends on the hours worked and the rate, and I have those. Now I can do my equations. So I can go in here and say hours. So gross pay equal to what? Equal to hours multiplied by rate. That's what they told us, and that's what I told you on the board. What's next? That's the gross. Federal tax, right? Federal tax equal to what? Gross pay times 15%. How do you calculate 15%? Either you type in 15 divided by 100, that's 15%, or you can just type in 0.15, and that is 15%. And I'm going to show you both ways. That's the federal tax. How about the state tax? State tax equal to what? Equal the gross pay multiplied by what? 5%, which is 0.05, or just put 5 divided by 100. I'll put it both ways so you can see the difference. Okay. So I got my gross pay, I got my federal tax, I got my state tax. What is left to calculate? The net pay. So net pay equal to what? Equal the gross pay minus the state federal tax minus federal tax, fed tax, and what? The state tax. You can do it this way, or you can do it another way. I'll put them both ways so you can see them. So this is one way to do it. You add all the deduction, all the taxes together, and then you subtract them from the gross pay. All right? If I can type it right, gross pay. Okay? Is that clear? Or if you want to do it another way, I'll put it as a comment. You say net pay equal gross pay minus federal tax minus state tax. Okay, either way would work. So this is the gross pay minus fed tax minus state tax. So I'm done with my calculation. Notice the steps, they keep repeating. First, you define your variable. Second, you do what? You get your input. Third, you do your calculation. Last thing you do is what? Display the result, the output. So I'll write them here. So first, we do what? Define variables. Second, get your input. Get the input. Third, do some calculation, right? And the last thing we do what? We do display result. Display output. That's how it usually works. All the programs that we've done so far follow the same scheme. You define the variables, you get your input, you do some calculation, and then you display the result. Now, how do we display the result? If we go back to the form, how many results do we have here? Four. The first one is called what? What did we call this one? TXT gross. And then this one, TXT federal. And this one, TXT state. And then the last one, TXT net. So if we go back to the code, all we need to do, we done the calculation, take those and put them in those fields. So let's start with the gross. We say TXT gross dot text equal to what? Here I want to format the output because it is dollars, currency. I have to format it into currency symbol. So I'll take the variable name, which is gross pay, dot to string, right? Last time we used to format string format. Here you just use toString. Why we don't use the string format here? You can use still string format like last time, but here you only have one value. So if you have one value, you can just type in the value and say toString, and then format it the way you want to. That's why we did not use the string format. If you remember last time, we put the eggs, the dozens, and then the remaining all together, right? In one sentence. That's why we use string dot format. Here, all I need to do is that convert the value and put it in the text box. So I don't need to use the string format. All right, I can just use toString. So I can say toString, and then I put the format that I want. What format should dollar or currency, right? Which is what? C. For currency, it's C. All right, and then I do what? Do the same thing for the other ones. What's the other one? TXT what? Federal, right? TXT federal dot text equal to what? Equal federal tax dot toString again, and then we use the currency format. And then I say TXT state tax dot text equal state tax dot toString, and then again C. and then what? txt net pay dot text equal what?
Equal net pay.
Equal net pay to string okay. All right. Is there anything new here in this program? This is the whole program. Is there anything new in this program? No. All we have to do is just put them together. You just need to actually practice and practice and practice until you get it. Okay. So we define the variables. We convert the text values into numbers because we're going to use them into my calculations, and then we do some calculation, and then we display the result. Now, if we run it, if I enter the name, then enter social security number, and then enter the hourly rate. How much is an hourly rate? Let's say I get paid $7.50, okay, per hour, and the number of hours I worked is 20 hours. Now, if I click on this, it would take this and multiply it by that. 150 is the gross pay. Taxes is 15%, which is 22.5. The state tax is 7.5, and then the net pay is the difference. Is that clear? All right, we're done with this video.